welcome to the Buffs Fav Five, a mini show where we make a list and count it down from 5 to 1. This week we're ranking the top 5 films directed by Antoine Fuqua. I'm your host, Cisco from Misfit Minded. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at misfit_minded, and you can also find me on my website at misfitminded.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in, starting with our number 5. So for my number 5 pick, I'm choosing a movie I hadn't seen until I took up this task of watching all of the Fuqua directed movies, and that's Tears of the Sun. So this is a movie that he did immediately after his Training Day success, Denzel winning the Oscar. It's a 2003 film starring Bruce Willis, Cole Hauser, Tom Skerritt, and the beautiful, as always, Monica Bellucci. Basically what it's about is a special ops team, headed by Bruce Willis, gets ordered by Tom Skerritt's character to go into the jungle, rescue these missionaries, this doctor, and a bunch of her co-workers, and extract them, and that's it. And what happens is Monica Bellucci, puts the spell on Bruce Willis and is like, I'm not leaving unless you take all these people that are going to die because, they're going to be slaughtered, basically, if you don't help them. So, yeah, I think one thing I learned from watching all of Fuqua's filmography is that he has a very wide range of different genres that he's worked in, which can be a bad thing and a good thing. In this case, I think him doing a war movie, I'm a big fan of that genre in particular. So, Bruce Willis, this is when he was, still in this successful run. I like the team aspect of it. Everything feels real, feels like you're in the jungle. I don't know where they shot it, but it just feels sticky and humid. And, everyone's on edge, basically. And Bruce Willis has to decide whether he is going to stick with the mission or, let his humanity win. Yeah, there's not as much action as I guess I expected from a Fuqua movie. But, again, I think it's more realistic that way. It becomes more of a chase movie because they're being tracked and chased down. And they kind of just have to survive. So it's more of a survival movie than a straight up war movie. But overall, I was not expecting this to make my top 5, honestly. But it's a pretty good movie, I would say, and one of his best. My number 4 pick is another first time watch that we did on the show actually not too long ago for the Buffs, and that is The Replacement Killers. Starring Chow Yun-fat and Mira Sorvino. This one is about an assassin, the titular replacement killer, played by Chow Yun-fat, who refuses a job at the front, which would, basically get him out of this life, this hitman life that he wants. But in order to do so, he has to kill the son of an FBI agent played by Michael Rooker. And this is very John Woo inspired. This was Chow Yun-fat's first American movie that he made over here, and I think Fuqua does a really nice job of kind of translating that style of action over. And I think, some of that has to do with his music video background, I'm sure. Mira Sorvino is the female lead, and I think, she is, sexy and badass, and we talked about her, and, it's very 90s part, but she plays a forger that's trying to help Chow Yun-fat, get to China and escape, basically. And, while it's not perfect, there's, again, it's a 90s movie, and so that means, the Asian lead cannot have a relationship with a white woman, and, other aspects that don't necessarily hold up. The gun fu in this is top-notch. We listen to our episode, but we went into detail about the set pieces, the choreography. Everything just feels very visceral and real, and it's that type of filmmaking that you don't get to see that much nowadays. So that's why it's my number 4. My number 3 pick is not one that I was watching for the first time. I actually vividly remember where I saw this in the theaters. I was on vacation with my girlfriend at the time, and there was this really nice movie theater complex next to our hotel, and we had some downtime, and I was like, hey, do you want to see Southpaw? I heard it's really good. We were both fans of Jake Gyllenhaal at the time, and The Notebook was like her favorite movie, so Rachel McAdams, being the wife in there, and I think we were both like blown away at just like how dramatically effective it was and how intense it was. And I think we come to know that that's like Jake Gyllenhaal's thing now, but back then he was still sort of doing these different things. But yeah, just very gritty boxing movie. Very much in the tradition of like Rocky and films like that. But I think Fuqua does a nice job of capturing just like the hardcore nature of boxing. Like you feel every hit, and I like that in this one. It's kind of the reverse Rocky formula where he is the champion at the beginning of the movie, and due to some circumstances, he loses his family and his career basically all in the span of like a week to a few months, and he has to basically redeem himself as a father, as a boxer, and just as a person. And I just love sports movies because they can do all of that while still being entertaining and still being action movies. So I wanted to shout out Una Lawrence, who plays their daughter in this movie. I think she was like one of those standout performances that we just were not expecting to be as affecting. Those courtroom scenes, very tough to watch, even though I had seen this movie before and I knew what was coming, still was hard to watch. And then Forrest Whitaker as the coach, who kind of brings him in under his wing and mentors him. Their storyline isn't as effective as like the main family storyline. It felt like they tried to do like 2 or 3 movies of boxing movies into one, and so some stuff worked better than others. I also think someone could have replaced 50 Cent. He's just not a great actor, and I know their justification was that he is a boxing promoter in real life. They wanted some of that realism, but honestly, any actor could have done that part. Having the real life announcers like Roy Jones Jr. was enough. Like, you didn't need any more realism than that. So, but other than that, Jake Gyllenhaal is fantastic. Goes from just this vicious, yoked champ to like this like pathetic loser father, and he's equally good at both. So I think it was a very tough role, but Gyllenhaal really thrives in those. So that's why it's my number 3. Coming in at number 2, I'm doing a little bit of a cheat here because these are 2 picks and they're not movies. They're technically TV series, miniseries, whatever you want to call them. Keeping up with the boxing theme, one of them is called What's My Name? And it's a documentary about Muhammad Ali. It's 2 parts, and it's on HBO Max, or Max, I guess is what it's called now. And I know about Muhammad Ali. I have a poster of him in my living room, and one of the greatest boxers of all time. But I think Fuqua, again, really different documentary, is a different style, a different genre than what we normally see. And I think, again, you can tell he's really into sports, really into athletes because of their skill, because of their mental determination. And so I really like how he just let the footage of Muhammad Ali speak for itself, because Ali was such a gifted speaker at the time, having all of these rhyme schemes and things to hype up the fights, his trash talk, his confidence, and just as a political figure, I think they say it in the documentary that like he is one of the essential American figures. Like, he encapsulates so much with his religious, becoming a Muslim, protesting the war, and being a heavyweight at a time where he wasn't very well liked by the general public. They wanted to see him lose, and but that just made him more popular. And a lot of boxers have taken on that strategy, but just none have done it on the same level as Muhammad Ali. So I really loved, watching that. And again, I think Fuqua does a nice job of just finding that footage, letting it speak for itself. I love history, and so I think, Muhammad Ali has there. This was a time when news and media coverage was on video a lot of the time, so he just lets it speak for itself, and a lot of good interviews with Ali. And then the other one he did was a Hulu series called Legacy, which is about, the Lakers dynasty. It's 10 episodes, and it goes from the beginnings, to where the Buss family, Jerry Buss, bought the team and bought the Forum, the stadium, along with like the Sparks and the soccer team, the Lasers, and it kind of outlines just the entire history of the Lakers over 10 episodes, which again seems like a lot, but they do a nice job of finding people to interview. I would say it's not. I was sold on it that it was like Succession, with basketball, and it's not that good. It's not Succession level, but I see what they're getting at, that like this powerful family is having, these power struggles on who is going to take over the organization, things like that. But again, I think this just was, if you're a fan of history, a fan of sports, you can't deny that the Lakers have a significant, part of basketball history, even though, I grew up a Lakers hater, as many people did, always wanted to see them lose. But, looking back, they cover a lot of bases. So everything from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, the different coaches like Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, and then to Kobe and Shaq and the LeBron era. So, we're talking about 50 years, 40 years of this dynasty, and trying to squeeze in that family dynamic. They interview the Buss family, but it's hard to know who to trust. Honestly, I think that's part of the problem is Jerry Buss, the father, wasn't around to be interviewed, but again, they have all this incredible footage and very powerful moments like Magic Johnson retiring because of his HIV diagnosis, and Kobe Bryant dying, the pandemic, like all of these moments that I remember as a sports fan, that just seeing it again in this kind of format was very powerful and emotional. So yeah, I recommend it. It's kind of like The Last Dance, I would say. That's like probably the better comparison. And it's not as good as The Last Dance because they have all this like locker room footage for the majority of that documentary, but it's still very well executed. And even people who don't know basketball and don't know the history of the Lakers, this is like a very good entry point, I would say. My number one movie, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody, but it's Training Day. The movie that won Denzel the Oscar. His performance still is just amazing. Every time I watch it, I just more and more see the conniving, planning that Alonzo does to Jake the entire movie. He's basically setting him up. And so it's very fun to rewatch. And, that's even just not even counting Denzel's superstar performance, where he is just lights out. So many quotable lines, that are just so funny to quote and revisit. I didn't know you like to get wet. This is The Office. It's just this was, I think, the beginning of people taking Fuqua seriously. Like, oh, this guy, the way that he captures LA, this style, and just the seediness like around every corner, that like a person like Jake, starts to become like, oh, you're idealistic, you don't know what life is like you think you're gonna be a good cop and arrest everyone, and that's how it's gonna be. But I think it does a good job of showing that like all levels of power, from the judges that they meet to the informants, and then to just like guys on the street, drug dealers, that Alonzo is just using, and there's a part that you never really get to know, the details of why Alonso is like doing all this stuff. Like, he's basically a guy that's trapped in the situation. He's trying to get his way out by any means, trying to raise this money before he's killed. And so that kind of explains, and still doesn't make him like a good guy. But again, I think that speaks to Denzel, that like part of you still likes this person, and some of his points are valid, about Jake, but the end and how everything resolves is just something I'm never going to get tired of, a movie I'm never going to get tired of. And this didn't make my top 5, but if you watch Brooklyn's Finest, it's fun to see Ethan Hawke kind of play the dirty cop role. I like to think of it as like an unofficial sequel where, Jake doesn't, hold up that good boy cop character and becomes like an Alonso eventually. Yeah, that's my top 5 list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you leave us a review on Apple. Follow the show on Instagram at We Stay Buff. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at misfit_minded, and my website at misfitminded.com. Thank you for watching, and thanks for listening to the Buffs Fave 5. Stay buff.